Hello and welcome to Positive Fandom. I am your host, Arcane, and today we are joined here. We have Dieter Bastian with us today. How are you
Hello,
today?
Here we are again with the final
Yes,
final act two. With the episode for the final act two of Arcane.
yes. And what a story this has been. This has been such an incredible story that they've been telling. Everything from the writing to the
Yeah,
beautiful animation to the music.
Asian.
And I especially love one particular musical sequence in this episode.
Okay.
But yes, this particular series has just been so spectacular. And I think we're being spoiled. And I don't know when we're going to get something like this again, Dieter.
Exactly, especially considering the animation. When I started to watch other stuff now, it's always a bit bit lackluster in that department, considering the high bar that Arcane has set with the visual style of the show.
And even the colors, like, there's so many elements about how it's made, the color saturation, the text, there's
Yeah.
even feels like there's texture to this series. And as I've said before, it doesn't seem like it's an animated series. There's quite a lot of different things going on. And recently what's been happening to me is that I have this fantasy of living in Piltover.
Would actually be a nice place to live.
Yeah,
Probably better than the Undercity.
yeah, definitely.
But perhaps the last stop could be a better party place. Who knows? You know,
That is true that, what used to be the last drop has turned into this great
last
club
drop,
now.
last stop, last stop.
And so, they've got rave music. As you know, I love techno and rave. So I would fit right in there, dancing or whatever it is. But it really is food for thought, and how at the beginning of the series, what Zon and Piltover were like. And now we're, I guess maybe well halfway through, and how they've
Yeah,
changed so much, haven't they?
yeah. Uh, especially now when we get to know these a little bit more, and we forgot the episode is called "When These Walls Come Tumbling Down." Is
When these
the
walls come
was come
tumbling
tumbling
down. Let's
down.
do that.
Exactly. And I would say, should we pick up where the cliffhanger left us with Y injured and Caitlin taking her in the around the Undercity to see if she can get some help or dress her wounds. Let's say.
Yeah, and they did leave us with quite a cliffhanger after episode 5.
Yeah.
I think that their decision to start off telling us more about Victor is in
Yeah.
particularly, like, it's so touching, isn't it?
Yeah. It was a nice flashback because we could see that he's not really fitting in with the other kids, that he doesn't play with the other kids because of his handicap. He was already handicapped back then. And but we can see his love for mechanics, with a little chip that he has, uh, which gets a little bit off track, and he did discover a cave, something like that, and gets his first time when we see a little bit about the shimmer, but it's not actually in the form that we know. It's more in a flower, the form of a flower that we find it in the cave. With the I actually don't know his name. I always say the doctor, but I actually don't know. We stumbled across his name the last episode, and I still don't know how he is called.
Right. The underworld scientist or
Yeah, the
doctor.
underworld scientist. Let's call him that.
And what's so interesting is how fascinated, Victor is with these glowing
Yeah,
flowers that are
yeah.
in a cave in the
So I
desert.
think it is what can be turned into shimmer. So it seems to
Yes.
me.
Yeah, absolutely. Victor is quite an innocent child here as we see
Yeah.
him, and it's sad to see him by himself, trying to entertain himself and making toys, which obviously he must have found scraps and put things together. And we see this incredible animal.
Yeah, which we actually I don't know what the kind of animal it is, but it certainly feeds on those flowers.
Yeah, its name is Rio, and it's just not the one that dances on the sand, from Duran Duran or anything like
No.
that. But what's so unusual about this whole encounter that Victor meets this scientist, and the scientist kind of shows a little bit of interest in Victor,
Yeah.
and the scientist talks about wanting to preserve a mutation. And I'm like, what is the mutation? Like, what exactly is going on here? He's doing this
So wasn't
experiment.
the animal the mutation for
I'm
me?
sorry?
Wasn't the animal the mutation that he was talking
I
about?
have no idea. Maybe. Yeah.
I
Okay. I
was
think
thinking
so.
about it. The animal was actually the mutation.
Yeah,
Wasn't
maybe
he
you're
wasn't he
right.
talking about the keeping the mutation alive with the
Yeah.
shin?
And I had, like there's so much going on behind the scene of what this scientist is doing that is completely over my head. I mean, I knew that Rio was eating these flowers, and I know that the creature seems really, really gentle, and just very a large creature. I don't even know what he is, as you said,
Yeah.
but he wants to keep him alive. And maybe you're right. Maybe it's the flowers that are keeping him alive. Maybe that's the only thing that is keeping um Rio alive,
Yeah.
and it's very strange, isn't it? Like
Yeah, we don't get exactly what is going on, but like you said, the unknown scientist takes him under his wing, and he learns perhaps his first steps to being a scientist. And we get the transition where we see Heimerdinger, who knows how the steps, how Victor, where Victor is now, where he's gotten there. So Heimerdinger was a little bit of his perhaps later protege. So, but I don't know exactly, was Victor from the underground,
yeah,
or
he is.
is it was it a lake at Pildover? It was a little bit not
I think he
exactly
is
clear.
from the underground,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
what's interesting is that
yeah,
Jace and Victor are kind of outsiders to Piltover.
yeah,
They are transplants and are very lucky to be in Piltover, because if they were, let's say, in the underground, their lives would be dramatically different. They'd probably be dead. I
yeah.
don't think Victor would even be alive now, if he hadn't been pulled out of the underground. I don't know how Victor got out. We know how Jace got there.
But we have both two examples that you could actually make it to Pildover
You
with.
can, and
Yeah,
perhaps that's why they're so passionate about
yeah,
helping people from Piltover. And I almost wonder if, I mean, seems like he might be from another planet, but I almost wonder that's what compelled them to start to do this technology, was the genuine concern and desire to help people in the underground.
yeah, yeah. Especially from Victor's side, perhaps more even. Perhaps Chase was already in the hierarchy a little bit higher with the Kinnermans, you know, with Caitlin's family. So he was already in another pool, I would say.
Right. And something else that's very interesting is that, of course, something that they show us in the beginning of this episode is that contaminated river. And then when they switch to the Heimdigger and Victor
Yeah,
scene, we can see the contamination flowing out of Piltover down into Zuan. So,
yeah,
it's sending quite a message about, what's going on here. And of course, they're implying that Piltover's waste and spillage goes down to Zuan and then contaminates everybody. And, that is also kind of heartbreaking.
yeah, yeah. And we see a little bit more finally that Heimerdinger actually wants the guys to stop with this experiment with putting biological material into the hex tech.
And it's not a surprise. It's so frightening, Dieter. Um, it's terrifying what's happening whenever they put something organic next to the hex tech.
Yeah, and Heimerdinger has a little bit of a flashback, but we don't actually know what has transpired there. But he knows perhaps of the dangers that will come from when they would move forward with their experiments.
And it seems like Heimerdinger's world, this world that he remembers, was actually quite very similar to what Piltover is becoming. It seems like a very advanced world that he, was from. And somehow, I guess at some point, they decided to establish Piltover. And Piltover did not have anywhere near the type of technology it seemed like what Heimdinger was accustomed to, because exactly what you said, Dieter, he just like got like this feeling of dread when he realized what was happening with these experiments that Jace and Victor are doing.
Yeah, but Chase sees an opportunity to save Victor with this, and so he really wants to push forward with it. And finally, he's has a membership in the council. So what is he doing to get it done?
Yeah. Fortunately, if he didn't have that membership, I think not only would the Hex Tech project be different, but he wouldn't have any control over it anymore. I think that he would have lost that, just like what Counselor Medarda has said. He really needed to kind of gain a lot more political control, because now it seems like his entire, I guess if Piltover is a land or whatever you want to call it, they're all dependent on the Hex Tech now, aren't they?
Yeah, and since he made already those deals, those other council members are on his side, and he uses the chance to send Heimerdinger to a nice retirement. You know, that he has done a lot for Piltover. He's not taking that away from him, but he's getting him pushed out of the council. You know.
He really did. I mean, it felt like a
Yeah.
political coup, like
Yeah.
sometimes,
Yeah. Yeah.
when they want to sort of get rid of a particular council member, and the other council members are like, yeah, I'm fine with it. He's always blocking everything. Yeah, I'll vote
Yeah.
for him to be removed. And ironically, it feels like Jace is replacing Heimerdinger as
Yeah.
sort of like the scientific council now, the main council member. Is Heimerdinger in charge of all of the counselors? Is he the leader?
Probably, I don't know how everything fits in the council, who has more to say or less, but he's considering probably one of the oldest members of the council, so his voice had some weight to it. But now there's time for a little bit of change up there, you
Well,
know.
it almost feels like Heimdinger, everybody's perception of Heimdinger is that Heimdinger is out of touch with what's
Yeah,
actually
true.
happening with what the people want, but also
Yeah.
they don't want to hear his warnings anymore. They don't want to hear any of this
Yeah.
stuff.
No, because business is flowing with the Hex Tech, and the more Chase will develop for them, the better,
Yes,
because
and I'm sorry.
because they don't have the background of Heimerdinger.
I think if Heimerdinger could share, really share with the council what he's seen in the past, I think that they wouldn't be able to comprehend what they're looking at. And I think that unfortunately, the society has to go through this change, this, change in technology to understand the dangers that they may encounter. I don't think there's anything that Heimerdinger could have said to them or done really that would inform them of, what kind of a crisis could occur.
Yeah.
And, Counselor Medarda, who happens to be a very talented painter, confides in Jace that she's estranged from her family. And,
Yeah.
I think that that's, somewhat disturbing. I understand that she is a brilliant counselor. She's incredible. Why is she estranged from her family? There must be something else going on with that story. And so now they've decided to go a little bit further into her background as well.
Yeah, which we will get to see more in Act 3 finally. And she is actually the last member that votes against Heimerdinger. If I remember correctly, the episode. I think she was the last who raises her hand to get Heimerdinger. You can go now.
Definitely. Some of the disturbing things that I noticed in this episode, Dieter, is that Victor, sort of like on his own volition,
Yeah.
seems to be like and Heimerdinger noticed this. Victor is changed, and he seems to have been somewhat consumed or corrupted by the hex tech. And then it made me think to myself, is the hex tech somehow corrupting or mentally consuming Victor?
Could be through, the blood that was combined with the hex tech. It could be that he is, but we will get to in the Act 3 with his little bit of a transformation.
Yes.
Which we will get, as far as I know, the character that the players know from the game finally.
Oh.
And just a little intersection.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have seen the honest trailers for Arcane.
I have seen some of them, but I don't remember all the details in the trailer.
The honest trailers that always Screen Rant puts out for all great movies. The honest trailers where they make fun of the stuff. And there's an honest. Now there's an honest trailer for Arcane, which is really, really great. I will send you the link. I had a great laugh with it. The honest trailer for Arcane.
Okay,
but since the show is so great, they didn't find much they could use for jokes, but there are some great ones in it. You see a little bit, and you see a little bit of the game as well, and how toxic the chat during a game can get.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I will send you the link. Great honest trailer for Arcane.
I look forward to it.
Yeah.
And so, we're starting to see Jinx.
Yeah.
And she
yep.
She happens to have the hex stone. Like, she stole this hex stone. And she doesn't quite fully understand what she is in possession of. But because she, as we've already stated, has a talent for creating ordnance of different types, I guess bombs and things of that nature, out of perfectly normal products like a toy. This is the type of thing that I think Heimerdinger was most concerned about and is scared about. And she goes to this bartender when she hears on the street or hears something's going on, because he's so innocent. This bartender's so innocent.
but he's actually scared a little bit.
Yeah,
because she knows she's unhinged a little bit.
She is. I was afraid what she did. I thought that she was going to really hurt him. And he does confide in her and tell her that, there are these two girls that fought Savika, and it was kind of like a big deal who they were. And, that's when, I guess Jinx decides she's got to go and confront Savika about this.
Exactly. Where, who they were looking for.
Right.
Because from the cliffhanger, Caitlin and Vi in the underground, and they find shelter in an old place from where Vi and the other kids were actually living. And Silco is pressuring his guys to find her, because he knows if Powder, aka Jinx, finds out that her sister is back again, that could interrupt his his relationship with her to a great extent. So he wants that that they will find her and immediately get rid of her as fast they can do that without even perhaps powder chinks knowing that Vi was even there. So he sends his men out and even contributes to the pursuit himself. In
Yeah, he's gonna get his hands dirty on this one, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
He
And
sort of
he confronts Marcus. Marcus, of course, who didn't know that Vi was out from the prison, but she immediately made a connection that probably Caitlin was involved to get her out of prison.
and Marcus is a very intelligent enforcer. It's just that he's corrupt.
Yeah,
And there isn't really a good bone in his body, and he's starting to feel the heat under just even his own personal sanity. He's starting to kind of collapse under all this, especially when his daughter is sort of confronted by Silico
yeah,
and his goons, whoever those two
yeah.
guys are.
They had a nice little play around. Nothing to it. So, but this was the first time when Silco was probably in Marco's home. It's really its private life now.
Yeah, and I always associate Silco with just being in the underground, and it honestly it seems like anybody can traverse from the underground
Yeah,
to Piltover, and then from Piltover to the underground, no problem. It's just that so there is no sort of like gatekeeping system where you can't go from one to the other, but it seems like if you go to Piltover and you don't have a certain look, or if you go to the underground and you don't have a certain look, you stand out. And, I think in the underground, we've seen several times where Vi will show up and someone is always trying to like mug her or hurt her
yeah,
somehow. And that's something that I don't think you have to deal with in Piltover, not for a second.
yeah. And then we have the great stuff with Caitlin to try to get her some medicine from in the underground, and she's getting a little bit of help from somebody. And she even had turned in her sniper rifle as a payment for the medicine.
And it's worth a
So
lot. That sniper
yeah,
rifle's really like she got shortchanged, but
yeah, and she's gotten rid of her weapon actually, and she's down in the underground. So this was a dangerous thing to do.
it really is. But she felt she had to do something to help
Yeah,
Vi. And I really love how when she went up to the window, that person who was behind
yeah.
the window,
The
oh my gosh,
medicine man, woman.
whatever this
Yeah,
thing was terrifying. And asked, they were like ailment. And I said, oh yeah. And she's like, the person was stabbed. And you could see them mixing the concoctions, and I wonder
yeah, yeah.
how potent this might have been the purest form of it, and so they put a
And
few drops in a vial, but I
yeah.
wouldn't even want to look or think about swallowing any of that stuff.
Yeah. But as you can see, she's only putting 1 or 2 drops of shimmer in it, so it can have a healing effect. It's probably that thin line from helping to addiction, considering when it comes to shimmer.
And it's quite ironic, isn't it? I mean, the potential for shimmer to have been something that could have benefited the people in Zuon versus making it into a drug that was abused. It's really a shame that the people in the underground got taken advantage of like this. And of course, we see it. One of the characters who shows Caitlin where to go to get the
Yeah.
shimmer, and he himself is just completely, disfigured from the abuse of shimmer. And it's sad. It's so sad. It was like it was almost like they were in, like a leper colony or something,
Yeah.
where all
I
these
was
people were.
I was thinking if I know
What
this
character?
person because he said he knows why, but I first thought it was from the first 3 episodes, but he of course, as far as I know, died. So I was thinking, do I know him? But probably not.
Yeah, it's something to think about and kind of troubleshoot and figure out who that person might be.
Yeah.
You know,
For first, it was I think it was, you reminded me a little bit of Milo, I believe what was his name,
yes.
a little bit. But I thought, no, he died in the explosion, so he probably couldn't be it. But he looked a little bit like him. I thought a
Yeah,
little
I
bit.
thought so too. You know, it's something we should probably look up. I haven't looked it up, Dieter. I don't
Yeah,
know for sure, but clearly he knew who Vi was, and I think Vi
yeah,
and her sister and Vander were famous because of the last drop, and you know Vander trying to keep the peace down there. I hope I'm saying the right name, or is it Xander? Trying to keep the peace down there. You know, made everyone know who they were. So that might also be part of it, but. You know, I have to be honest with you. You know, now that uh, Silco knows that Vi and Kate
by
are
his
down
back. Yeah,
there, you know, it is a concern. And so, despite the fact that, you know, she got, when I say she, Vi got healed, and even her response to after she took it was very unusual. We can see Silco is chasing her
yeah,
and Vi.
exactly, because he wants not that Jinx find out that Vi is back. You know, could totally his connection with her could be shattered. You know, his influence could be gone to use her.
Definitely, and
Yeah,
Savika has already spilled the beans. She said, you
yeah,
know, your sister is back and
but
she's
not
within a
but not but not on her own terms.
right. Exactly. And you know, who would have guessed that Vi would be coming to the underground with an enforcer? I mean, if anybody had said
Yeah,
that years ago, they would have said no way.
yeah,
Vi, there's no reason for Vi to be friends with an enforcer. They're the enemy. You remember how she was saying we need to fight against them, and here
yeah,
she is working with them in a very similar way. I think to how we saw, you know, Xander working with her with an enforcer in the beginning of the series. So that's very funny that she would find herself in a similar
yeah.
position.
And of course, Jinx doesn't believe what she is hearing from Sevica, what she's telling her. You know, and we have later a little bit that great scene when Silco detects that she's calling him a liar. You know.
Yes, definitely. And is Savika hanging from the ceiling in that scene?
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Oh my gosh, she really Jinx certainly knows how to run a show or give a good show, so to speak.
Yeah.
In her imagination of
when
how
when she
things
when she
are.
guessed Sevica when she was coming in, because Silco at that moment was on the pursuit of Vi.
That's right. And ironically, as Vi and Caitlin
Caitlin.
run
Yeah.
away, you know, because they do get confronted by Silco. As
Yeah.
Vi and Caitlin run away, we also notice, Dieter, that someone else is watching both parties. There's someone else watching this whole thing go down.
Exactly. One of the firelights.
Yes. And, you know, it automatically makes me wonder, you know, honestly, I was like, is this, you know, who are these people?
Yeah, exactly. We still don't know anything about them. Just that one attack that they did on the airship in I think it was episode 4 immediately. But
Right.
other than that, we actually don't know anything about them. You know,
Nor do we know what their motivations are. We have no
no.
idea why they were there, you know, what
Only
their
only that they were also framed for the terror attack that actually was done by Jinx when she stole the crystals and blew up the laboratory. Not the laboratory, but where they
yeah,
do the research. The research.
yeah, I would say laboratory
Yeah,
would
laboratory.
be a good description for it. And speaking of laboratories and looking at some of the other information about what's going on with Victor, and you had mentioned that Victor was wanting to use this hex core to save his life, and his body is deteriorating, and it's kind of sad to hear Victor say things like, I can feel my body, failing me. And that really kind of broke my heart, because he's not an old man. He's
Yeah.
probably the same age as Jace, probably about 25, 30 maybe. And for him to feel, all of his body functions kind of shutting down, it must be terrifying. And we've seen how Jace has visited Victor, and Victor's in bed and he's really, really sick. So this is, quite a turnaround for him. But something that I think is very interesting is that, and I don't even know if I'm not necessarily saying this in complete order, but we
Yeah.
see quite
No,
a
no.
different
No, we
turnaround.
jump, we jump all over the place
We have
considering
no
the
choice
episodes.
but to jump back and forth, right? We see quite a turnaround of Victor, because we get another flashback scene about Victor,
Yeah.
and he's still a child, and he's bringing in these beautiful glowing flowers to the scientist, only to see that supernatural creature, Rio, I call him
Yeah.
supernatural, is like cruelly being experimented on. And I think that maybe after a while he's realized what he's been witnessing is not necessarily the doctor's purpose to keep Rio alive. It's not altruistic. It's really for some other benefit. And honestly, it's not
Oh, okay.
entirely clear why he wants to keep Rio alive. I mean, do you think from what we've seen, we could know what his intentions are and what he's trying to accomplish? Because I am at a loss myself. I think if I were a child and I saw something like this, I wouldn't really understand what this doctor is doing. What is this doctor doing to Rio?
Uh, I can tell you, we only know what it will later become, when he finally gets it to his shimmery form, I would say. But what he is actually, he says he wanted to keep the creature alive, but like you said, just for doing more tests with the creature, perhaps. So it's like you said, not out of not out of love, perhaps, for the animal. Didn't thought about that, but you
And he
could be
has
right.
those plugs in him, remember, Dieter?
Yeah,
He has like these attachments on his body.
yeah,
And I'm like, what is this? Like it's such a strange thing. And then and I am going to jump ahead just a little bit. Then we see
yeah,
Victor as an adult go back to the scientist and say, I understand what you were talking about. And it looks like the creature, and correct me if I'm wrong, it looks like the creature's in a vat, like a giant, I don't know what it's called, but
yeah, yeah,
and it's still alive. It's like maybe 10 years later, Dieter.
yeah.
It's the craziest thing ever. And he ironically says to the scientist, I understand now. And I'm like, well, I don't understand. Has this doctor or scientist corrupted not just Rio, but Victor too? I mean, is that what we're seeing?
To some degree, certainly, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because let's say that Victor is driven by the same passion as the scientists for developing stuff. You know, made made for good or bad purposes. You know.
Yeah, and it's quite ironic because it had, when Victor first approached Jace about these experiments, and Victor, as you had said, was Heimerdinger's assistant, like the closest
Yeah.
person to the scientist there. And I'm wondering whether Victor has these tendencies that he had been hiding from Heimerdinger, to be somewhat on the edge, but he couldn't say that he was that way because he wanted this position,
Yeah.
so that he could get this important position, in Piltover, and maybe had been hiding these feelings that he's had. But I think it's very interesting to see how Victor, he's kind of like living on the edge more or less, and maybe for quite some
Yes,
time.
he has nothing left to lose at that moment in time. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it was completely intrigued me seeing his Victor's transformation in this episode. And perhaps Victor's involvement is maybe 50% of how, the hex tech and the hex stone even came to fruition. but most importantly, we see a scene where Jinx is
Yeah.
she kind of like is pushed to the edge mentally, and
Yeah.
she's having all these issues. And I was so touched. She still had that beacon that her sister Vi gave her.
Exactly. The blue,
And
the blue, the blue flame. Blue flame.
yes, and she was like, and we can hear her say, like Vi say, if you need to find me, just use this flame
Yeah.
and I'll come and find you. And she does it, and she kind of lifts her arm up like this. Okay, you can't see my arm, but you know what I mean. She
Yeah.
lifts it up and the light goes off. And they have this incredible musical passage while she lifts it up. And it was just like, it felt like magic when the light went off. And it was just at the moment when Vi and Caitlin were running away from Silco. They
Yeah.
kind of escaped. But
They kind of escaped. It was a little bit of great rumblings when the walls come tumbling down.
yes, and it was very cinematic,
Yeah.
Dieter. It was so cinematic.
Great,
It
great
felt like a
action scene.
movie. Oh, it was
Yeah.
so good. I was just
Yeah.
like, I just wanted to sing that song. I can still
And
hear
Silco was not that happy that he actually punished a little bit of his own crew for it.
He really did. I mean, he started to face kick that poor guy, and I
Yeah.
was like, what is he doing?
Yeah.
But Silco kind of showed his ruthless side
Yeah.
in that scene. And
But like you said, Vi discovers the blue light, and because she knows that for her still Powder is still alive,
yes,
because I think
and
she was under the impression that probably Silco killed her or something like that, and
or
we
that
we
maybe Powder
actually
didn't want to see her again.
we did in the episode find out that it was actually Marcus that put her away in the prison.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think you're right about when you were saying that Vi may have thought her sister was dead. Vi also didn't know if Jinx would want to see her. And of course,
Yeah.
the light is a signal that she knows that her sister is
Yeah.
looking for her. I mean, it was just so amazing. And as the signal starts to burn out, and the light goes out, Jinx really like doesn't know what to think. She's very torn, she's scared. And there's that moment where Jinx is standing there and Vi goes, Powder?
Yeah. They are reconnected. They at least try to reconnect, or
Oh
why
my gosh.
tries to reconnect. That she
Yeah.
did a mistake back then, but we already know that our Powder, now Jinx, is on a little bit on the fence, with a split personality, and just can't figure out what is going on exactly.
It's really too
She
bad that
actually she actually has the moment where you could think everything could be all right, but then actually Caitlin shows up, and she knows that Sevika was actually not lying. She is with an enforcer, which switched her around a little bit again to more
yeah.
in Jinx mode.
And it's so sad that Powder is going through this split personality thing, because she can't even concentrate at this point.
Yeah. And especially you have to be careful with the little Gatling gun she's carrying around with her.
That thing is bigger than her.
Yeah.
I mean, she just was like, all right, fine, I'll just, fire off 100 rounds.
Because we get great action moment for the final
Yes.
minutes of the episode when the fire lights show up.
Before we talk about that, Dieter, I have a question for you. And you have mentioned that Powder keeps hearing voices. There's something, odd going on with Powder. And we've seen that Silco uses shimmer.
Yeah.
Does Powder use shimmer?
For his injury, for his eye injury, yeah.
Yes. Does Powder use shimmer?
We never seen it that she uses it, but she would have gotten easy access to it. She actually was on that ship as a security detail. With all all the barrels. So could be, actually could be,
I
but we
mean, I
never
think,
see it. We never see it that she would actually take it.
you know why I asked this question? Because that
Yeah,
type of drug could exacerbate her condition,
yeah.
where she could become somewhat more unhinged.
Yeah.
While
But I think it was the break after the first act in episode 3 from Y that did the most to her, and then Silco did her own upbringing to get her on his side, you know.
true. And that's a very good point. And I'm glad you mentioned that. But yes, now you were saying that suddenly another group shows up.
Yeah, the Firelights again, which
Yes.
like you said, we actually don't know anything about them. Who is this group? Where is it mostly located? And what is their agenda, actually? No. But
Yeah.
we get a little bit of that because they get in possession of one of the crystals.
Yeah, somehow
Mm.
Powder drops the gemstone, the hexstone,
Yeah,
and one of the firelights picks it up
yeah,
incidentally. And they're under attack by these firelights. Like they
yeah.
are attacking Vi and Powder. I don't remember
And Caitlin, of course, has her doesn't have her weapon anymore with her. She gets knocked out, you
right.
know. And it's a really great action scene, like all action scenes in Arcane are just fantastic.
It was amazing. Just
Mm.
like what you said when Jinx was firing that Gatling
Yeah,
gun, and
the gun.
it's kind of
Mm.
like
Yeah, but actually the firelights are a little bit too fast for such kind of a weapon.
yeah, they seem to outsmart Jinx, and I'm guessing it's because they fought her in a few episodes before, and they know how
Yeah,
she operates. They even kind of cut her.
yeah,
They cut her
in the
leg.
thigh. Yeah,
Yeah, and and she, she kind of is like, ow, and she'll just keep going, but it's quite an intense fighting scene.
yeah.
And the Firelights have gotten this hex stone now. They have it. They managed
And
to
they even capture Y.
yeah. Um they capture Vi, they take her away,
Yeah,
and then they even cut Powder, or Jinx, I keep calling her Powder,
we
and
know we probably can say
call
Jinx.
her Jinx.
Powder, aka Jinx.
And just like that, Powder loses Vi again.
Yeah. So we have actually kind of the same situation with after the first 3 episodes. They're getting separated again, which finished Act 1. And now we have some kind of similar situation where they get split up again. And we finished Act 2. So for me, when Netflix aired the show this week apart, were actually really strategic considering the story that they were telling. They're totally fit to do a break here because they split up again just when they did found each other.
Yes, and it is very tragic. I think, Powder realizes, although she hasn't said anything, she realizes that she's being manipulated. And
Yeah,
this is very hard for her to accept. And I think as a young woman, I wouldn't be happy with that. Now she's her approach to things have kind of switched, gears, where she was working on this and working with Silco, and now she has every reason to be somewhat suspicious of her sister and Silco now.
yeah,
She's in a very unusual and vulnerable position. And another thing that I think is very interesting about this episode is that clearly we can see that Victor is the limiting factor in the development of the Hex Stone as well as Shimmer. He's playing both sides, more or less, right?
more more or
Tina?
less. Yeah, exactly. Let me just see if I forget something.
Yeah.
Uh, Caitlin was just unconscious at the end of this episode. I'm really looking forward to the next episode because I don't remember anymore exactly she where we did left with her exactly.
Yes,
Did she
the
get back to
firelights took her along with
as
Guy.
well? Oh,
Yes.
okay. I remember, but we didn't see that. Did we see that in the episode?
I don't know what they showed it, but they said, let's take them. Let's take,
Okay.
and they take both ladies with them. And
Yeah, and we got that one scene where Chase and or Marcus and his troops are on that bridge already. You
yes.
know,
Oh my God. What they're
where
doing.
they
What exactly
wanted
are they doing?
to do a search, probably, a sweep or a search
Oh.
for why, you know,
Oh,
just
right.
it's just the little setup for what would be coming next. So really, once again, great episode, of course.
It's a great episode, and I'm very intrigued by Victor because
Yeah,
he's he's this catalyst in so many ways for what happens in the story. And honestly, his life is touched with tragedy in so many ways throughout this show. He really is
yeah,
a character that I wouldn't have guessed was connected to Shimmer, or let's say perhaps the
yeah.
development of it, as well as the
and
Hexstone.
and
And
that yeah and that is probably one of the greatest things about the show in general. You don't have really side characters at all, of course. You could say Marcus, something like that, is more of a side character, but they all really have get their time and their backstory. So of course, our Jinx and Y are probably at the forefront, but everyone feels fleshed out from the characters,
they certainly do, and I'm just absolutely fascinated by Victor, who clearly knows a lot more than what he's telling Jace. Um,
Yeah,
and I think Heimerdinger knows Victor's past. I think he knows that he was involved in this, and that's perhaps how Victor, came to him. We don't know for sure, but
yeah,
I think Heiminger knows a little bit more about Jace, excuse me, Victor overall, and that's why he kind of might have taken him under his wing.
yeah.
He knew he was a very talented young man, but uh, Victor, I have to say, is he a villain?
I wouldn't label him as a villain. In the When I remember in the first episode, I was thinking of him more of that he is a detective, where
Hmm.
you have this crime scene where the explosion happened, and he was wandering around. So I first was thinking
Yes.
of him that he is kind of a detective, but we know now that it was more of the technical side and all the mechanical equipment, that he was probably that's why he was there in the first place.
And has Victor become the scientist that he was so afraid of? That man, has he become like
Okay,
that man?
yeah, that could be that could be true. It could be true. But really, once again, Arcane is just so good and
It's
so great.
absolutely
Yeah,
spectacular, Dieter. I just love it, and I'm so looking
and it's
forward.
really fun to watch the episodes for a second time, because you can pick up stuff that you probably missed in the first viewing.
Yes, like for example, the fight that seems to be ensuing, that Jace seems to want to clean up the mess or
Yeah,
stop this. Oh, this is something that's very important. It's ironic that Heimerdinger was
yeah,
challenged in the counselor's
yeah,
table by Jace, when Jace said, "You know something? I know you said that you think you did a good job, but do you realize that Shimmer has infiltrated the underworld and the galaxy under your watch? And it's been one of the most destructful things ever to come out
yeah,
of,
yeah,
let's say their world. And now it's, galaxy wide, this Shimmer distribution. and it's Heimerdinger's fault. Like, he was very pointing the finger towards him, and yet you and I both know that all the council members have benefited from the sale of
Yeah.
Shimmer.
Yeah, we saw it in the episode before that, when they all made the deal with Chase, where he said, when we will get something out of it, you will be the first to know or have your hands on it. And we shouldn't forget a little bit about Caitlin, because her relationship with Y has strengthened in this episode,
It has,
and Y has certainly gotten more respect, because Caitlin was wishing around in the underground,
well, Caitlin
on her
came in
own.
with so many biases, didn't she?
Yeah, yeah. And so their strength has definitely has been strengthened, their bond together, or their respect for each other, at least from Vi's perspective, and like she looks at Caitlin, just as a cupcake, as she says.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly I feel that they might be a little bit closer than they'd like to admit, but they definitely are starting to like one another.
Yeah.
And, that's becoming apparent as both of them are taking care of one another in a situation that's quite precarious, because it feels like at any moment things could go their way and then, just turn into a disaster for both of these ladies. And Vi has already had the brunt of that, being in prison for so long. I can't imagine being locked away like that. I think, Vi must be an incredibly strong person to handle what this injustice that's happened to her. And she's not even interested in trying to, track down who did this to her. Like, that's not even something she's concerned about.
She did that. She did that already in prison.
Yes. Yeah. I guess she did, kind of like say, this is what you guys did to me. Then, I'm going to fight it out, if this is how it's going to go down. But, she is an incredibly strong person. And I think Caitlin has gained a lot more street smarts.
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably true too.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, there's so many great characters, So there's really not really big side characters,
Right, exactly. And the character
or
development
just surface level characters. And we
oh
still,
yeah,
if we can skip a little bit that into
yes,
the next episode, considering the Firelights, we didn't know that one of their leaders will be the little Echo from the
yes, this is
first
what's
three
coming
episodes. And
up.
that is a little bit of an advantage if you play the game, because the players know that character that they can play, And for the players, it's probably great to see how these characters develop into the game characters that they know, considering which weapon they use, and so on,
Absolutely. I think that there's so many things in this series that are remarkable. And, we're getting characters that we were introduced to in the beginning of the show now coming back.
Yeah.
The character that might be the one who started it all, the one who followed Jace to his laboratory and then charged him twice for the stuff he needed, the illegal
Yeah.
things he needed from the underground, things that he must have known existed. I don't know how, but somehow he found these illegal items, and perhaps that's why Victor was so intrigued when he went to look at Jace's laboratory and said, "Well, where'd you get this from? This isn't something you would find here."
Yeah.
But Victor would know where he got it from because he's from the underground, and so once he teamed with Victor, that was the key to making it work. So without Victor, I don't think that any of this. He was sort of like the catalyst or the limiting factor, limiting variable to making Hex Tech work, in my opinion. But it's absolutely fascinating, Dieter. This is really a triumph to these game developers and to the animation team who did this. I just want to say their name. I have it in my
The
other.
Fortiche studio.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. I just have to say they really are just unbelievable in storytelling, in making compelling characters. And you're just blown away by their artistry.
Yeah.
Fortiche is just they're I mean, I wish I could do
The
stuff like
show
this.
has her own style. Never seen quite anything like it.
I haven't either. And I think that it might be the future for a lot
And
of
they're not
stories.
afraid to experiment with some stuff. When you're considering flashbacks or Jinx has a mental breakdown. They're not afraid to experiment with different styles. To throw different styles into the mix.
Agreed. And I still, maybe one of those days I'll make it to Piltover, Deets. Who knows? But
You
um,
want to live in Piltover, but party in the last drop. Yeah, I get it. I get
yeah, exactly. Yes, that's exactly. How did
it.
you know? Let's
You want to
go.
cure the hangover up top, but party down there.
So, and you have any final thoughts on this episode, Dieter?
Great episode that finished Act 2 of our 3x3 part structure of Arcane.
Yes, which means we have 3 episodes left.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%, and I can't wait to do the next ones. Dieter, where can people find you?
People can find me, of course, on the network with the little Let's Get Physical Media show on every Sunday when we find the time to do it. And they can follow me if they want on Instagram under d.b.deets, DEETS, DBDeets. And there you can find me. Or just send in comments if you said something wrong about the show, considering we don't know the game, we don't play the game. So people with more knowledge about the game can perhaps correct us in the comments.
Absolutely. And you can find me here on Positive Fandom, where I stream on my YouTube channel. I also stream on Twitch. On Twitch, it's one word, Positive Fandom. On YouTube, it's 2 words, 2 separate words, Positive Fandom, where we do reviews and live streams and more. On Monday nights, you can find me streaming with Lorena Creel on Toxic Femininity. On Wednesdays and Thursdays, sometimes you can find me on the 1/6 Scale Man Network, either on Say What or Uncivilized Scoundrels. On Friday afternoons at 12, you can find me at 12 p.m. Eastern on Midnight's Edge in the morning with Tom and Andre and Cameron Pasha. On Friday nights, you can find me on the Burn Network streaming with Robert Meyer Burnett. And on Sunday, you can find me on my network here on Positive Fandom for my Sunday brunch at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we do all the parlay of entertainment that we love. I'm also going to be having more episodes of PGS All-Stars and PGS Reviews on the Burn Network as well. And Dieter, do we know if they're going to do a second season of this anime series?
As far as I know, yes. But it will probably, considering the animation style, will take some time. But considering how good the show was, I will not forget the characters or where we left off with the series.
Yeah,
At
it's impossible to forget this.
considering some series, you're always happy when Netflix is doing the recap what was happening before, to get something up to speed again where we did left off. But considering Arcane, I wouldn't actually need the recap. But other series, I need the recap. Especially
Agreed.
considering through COVID, a lot of shows got delayed. Longer than usual.
Right. I sure hope that they are working on part
Yeah.
2. Knowing them, they've probably written it. It's just to actually execute what's happened, because I'm not going to say what happens at the last episode, but I'm sure when we get to the last episode, I think everybody's going to understand why I'm asking if there's going to be a season 2. So thank you so much for joining me today, Dieter.
You're welcome.
And everybody who's watching, yes, Dieter and I are going to continue to review the rest of the Arcane series. We're hoping to also do a Cobra Kai series and anything else that tickles our fancy here going forward. And for all of you out there, please check out the rest of the episodes that Dieter and I have. Please go on onto the Burr Network, as well as Positive Fandom, and see some of the videos that we've made. I hope you're enjoying this. And for all of you out there, as we end this broadcast, please always remember to be kind.